Hello, everybody. Ooh, that's nice and loud. I like that. So as Rick said, my name is Eamon. I teach at the Digital Worlds Institute at University of Florida. And there I teach their writing classes. You might wonder, why does the Digital Worlds Institute, which is focused primarily on animation, game design, and sort of 3D modeling and these sorts of things, why do they need writing classes? I don't know. But I feel very grateful and lucky to be there. So I am going to do, it says it's a workshop on our little schedules, but I consider this more of like an interactive play shop. So we're gonna play together, so I'm gonna need some audience participation. This is a very non-technical demonstration of one way that you can use AI. In this case, we're just going to use ChatGPT just because it's the most famous and most people have probably already used. Who here has already used ChatGPT? Has anybody never used it before? A few people. Okay. Well, we're going to use ChatGPT today. And the inspiration for this workshop has to do with one of the classes I teach at UF is about play and games. I'm very interested in surrealism as a movement and as it's sort of an aesthetic philosophy, and just as an aesthetic on the side. And as we mentioned, I forget who was talking about this yesterday. Somebody mentioned all the games that surrealists would play. Actually, I think this was in the wall text, right? The games that surrealists would play to sort of access a unconscious mind that could surprise you. I have a lot of students in my classes who are very concerned about originality. They want to have highly original work, but they don't, they're fledgling writers, they're fledgling storytellers, and so they have a great deal of anxiety around the question of like, how do I generate original ideas if I'm just some 19-year-old in college and I don't have any original ideas? And I mostly tell them, don't worry about it, it's fine. You can't actually generate a pure copy anyways. You're always gonna have some kind of a problem of translation, and your idea is always gonna be original because you are an original person, but they don't really like that, even though it's the truth. So what we like to do is we like to play some games to get them working from a more unconscious place. And this game that we are about to play is comes out of my experimentation with ChatGPT, trying to use it for various purposes. If you've used ChatGPT for creative writing before, you maybe have used it for creative ideation. It's a really common use. Outlining plots or character creation. These are all the sort of common uses, but I was having a difficult time getting ChatGPT to do what I wanted, which was to engage as kind of a real interlocutor. So if you've ever played the game Exquisite Corpse, has anyone played that game before? Yeah, Exquisite Corpse is that game where you take a piece of paper, you fold it up, you draw on it, and then you pass it to the next person who can't see what you've just drawn, and then they draw the next section of the body, the corpse, the exquisite corpse, and then they pass it to the next person, and what you end up with is sort of a bizarre hybrid creature that looks completely insane if you're playing it right. If you're playing it wrong, as apparently Salvador Dali would play it wrong, he would just draw like a train station in the middle, so you'd have like a head, and then a train station, and then some legs, and he wasn't really like playing along with the rest of the surrealists, but we can do something like that. So I call this game the Exquisite Corpus. Ooh. We're still there. And how many people in this room are teachers or instructors? Almost everybody, a lot of people. So maybe if this is fun for you today, then you might be able to use it in your own classroom. And if it's not fun for you today, I'm so sorry. But hopefully it'll be fun. So what I like to do to start out with is we're gonna start out by creating a character. And what I usually do just to remind myself that this is kind of a stochastic process, and at the end of the day, working with AI in any capacity is sort of a chance-based practice. So I pull a tarot card. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to pull a random tarot card and draw an image of it. This is just sort of part of the ritual that I do. It doesn't actually impact anything, but I'd like to see what it comes up with. So we're going to ask it to pull a random tarot card. And it's thinking about it. Here we go. Looks like the Hermit is our tarot card. That's not a bad one to use. And what I like to do is I like to look at the tarot card. I also like to look at what they have in the background of the tarot card, because oftentimes, depending on the style that it chooses, this is a pretty traditional tarot style, but depending on the style it chooses, it may have interesting items in the background. So we could make a character that is a hermit if we wanted to, or we could make a character that is like a mountain goat if we wanted to, or we could just completely ignore this if we wanted to do that too. But let's make a character based on this hermit figure. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the character, if we have time. I don't know how much time it will take to actually make a character in a group like this. If we have time, we'll make another character, and then we're gonna have it write a scene for us of those two characters that we've generated, and we're gonna see what that scene is like and whether we like it or not. And I think that might be all the time we have. If we have extra time, we can continue playing with it, but that's sort of the agenda for the day. What I've found is when I try to use ChatGPT to generate characters, it doesn't have enough interesting information about the character. And I struggled for a long time with how do I get more interesting results, because I forget who mentioned it yesterday, that I think it was the first speaker yesterday who mentioned that ChatGPT kind of coalesces around a single style, and that style is kind of bland. And so how do we spice it up? Well, one way that we spice it up is by actually not allowing ChatGPT to do all of the work. We're actually going to be the ones doing the work. So I found on Reddit, somebody was trying to make a GPT agent of themselves. They tried to make, this guy's name was Hank, so he wanted to make a GPT agent named Hank, and he was trying to program in, not program, but just prompt in his own qualities and characteristics that he thought were important. Excuse me. And it wasn't working. And then he figured, well, I should just have GPT ask me what it thinks is important, and then it's going to interview me, and it will save the information, and then I'll be able to. And he said this worked much better. So I started trying this with fictional characters, and so we're going to try this today. So I guess let's put it to a vote. Would we rather do a hermit character or a mountain goat character? If you have hermit, raise your hand. If you would rather do a mountain goat. It's about 50-50. What if we did a hermit who was a mountain goat? Yeah.
Yeah, ask GPT what's more.
Okay. What is more interesting to make a character of a hermit or a mountain goat?
We should make it like a sidecar with a hermit
Oh yeah.
and a mountain goat on the bottom.
Yeah. They're both great, and we love you. And whatever you decide, I hope that was helpful. Glad that helped. Yeah, let's combine it. So,
Like a satire.
yeah, let's come up with a name for our satire. And you can just shout out a good name.
Hank.
Hank. Why not? Hank. So I'm gonna tell it, I would like to create an agent named Hank, who is a satyr. That's how you spell it, right?
I'm not sure.
I think it is. Half human, half
Herman.
goat. Hank is a hermit. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask it to interview me about it. So ask me a series of, and usually I like to do 20 questions because the game 20 questions, but also because I find that with a larger, I mean, we don't have all day, but we do have a decent amount of time, so we can do 20 questions. The more questions that you give it, the more specific the result turns out to be. Last night I generated an owl named Omar, who is 420 years old, and man, they had a lot of questions about Omar. He was pretty cool. So ask me a series of 20, no, only 20 questions, one at a time, about Hank. His likes, his origins, how he talks, etc. And then I found that you actually have to instruct it explicitly to say, ask me one question at a time, wait for my response before asking the next question. And then I also want to be able to talk to Hank. Excuse me, I don't know why I have all these frogs in my throat. I guess it must be Florida. Yeah. I will invoke this agent with the command talk to Hank. And I think that's all we need to do. So we're gonna generate this character together. So I'm not gonna answer actually any of the questions, but as soon as you see a question, shout out the answer and I will type it in. Does that make sense?
That sounds disastrous.
Oh yeah, we love a little bit of chaos around here.
Yeah, chaos.
What led Hank to become a hermit? Was it choice, a necessity, or something else? Choice? Hank became a tornado
Tsunami.
hermit by choice when his home, well that's kind of necessity, isn't it? But destroyed in a tsunami, doesn't need to be capitalized.
But he lived in the mountains, so I don't know what kind of tsunami would have affected.
Well, maybe he moved to the mountains after the tsunami. His village was destroyed, and he moved to the mountains to live a life of solitude. Anything else? What I like about this is that it's actually not ChatGPT who's coming up with this, right? It's like we are the ones who are doing the work. What ChatGPT is being used for here is actually just to organize and keep track of these characteristics that we're going to invent for him. How does Hank feel about the solitude of his hermit life? Does he find peace in it, or does he ever long for companionship? Someone raised their hand because I can't. Yeah.
Peace.
Peace. He finds peace in his life of solitude. Hank is an introvert.
best friend is a frog.
His best friend is a frog. The only person Hank talks to is his best friend, a frog named what?
Tommy.
Domino?
Tommy.
Tommy. Oh, okay. Domino's a cool name for a frog too. Named, but we'll go with Tommy. What is Hank's relationship with Tommy the Frog like? How do they communicate, and what kind of conversations do they have?
They don't know frogs can't talk.
Hey, come on, this one. This one.
They communicate telepathically. Oh, he's getting really interested in Tommy. And by he I mean ChatGPT. What is Tommy like? Is he wise, playful? Does he have a distinct personality that complements Hank's?
He's just a frog.
Tommy is a normal frog.
Cool. Next to be small.
Mention Hank in this answer. Might bring it back.
Yeah, I think we need to bring it back. Who wants to go home to his pond, but Hank won't let him.
Yeah.
Why does Hank keep Tommy from returning to his pond? Does he have a specific reason, or is he tied to his fear of losing his only companion? He wants to eat him.
Just in case.
Waiting for him to grow.
Cook Tommy and eat him.
But he's really developed a relationship with him over this.
Right.
It's one-sided, but it's powerful.
Tommy must be really fast frog.
By now he is, because he's been in the kitchen the whole time and he hasn't been cooked yet. How does Hank reconcile his, I'm kind of sick of talking about Tommy, but
Can't steer him back.
yeah, this is interesting though. How does he reconcile his original plan to eat Tommy with the friendship they've developed? Does he ever feel guilty, or is it a constant internal conflict? That's actually kind of a good question.
Torture.
He's
Torture.
Hank is internally tortured by this conundrum. I think that's enough. Yeah. Yeah, let's just see if we can steer it back to. By the way. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
All right, where's Hank going and why?
Somebody said pilgrimage.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hank is going on a pilgrimage. Is that how you spell it? Pil-
You can't really see.
Oh, you can't really see it? How's that?
Better.
Sorry about that. Pilgrimage, like the pilgrims. Where's he going?
Bahamas.
To the Bahamas, the holy sites of the Bahamas.
Find more frogs.
On the self-made apple.
On a self-made airboat. He's handy. What is motivating Hank to go on this pilgrimage to the Bahamas? Is it spiritual, personal, or just a longing for adventure?
Spiritual.
He wants to find a girlfriend for Tommy.
We don't want to get back to Tommy.
Spiritual.
It is a spiritual calling
Fulfill his void.
to his internal loneliness and the void in his heart.
But what's the goal of this arm?
We're only on 9. I know it's gonna take a while. Maybe we'll only do one character today. But I do think that you need to do. You don't need to do 20 questions, right? That's kind of an arbitrary number. You do need to do a fair number of questions, or else it will latch onto, like it did with Tommy, it will latch onto one idea, and then you'll have a one-dimensional character. How does Hank prepare for his journey? Does he pack anything special, or does he rely on survival skills and instincts?
First meditation, and
He practices meditation, or he packs the first
then
meditation?
prepare, yeah.
Oh, Hank first meditates to prepare for his journey. Does he need to do anything else?
He's been drying meats for beef jerky.
Ah, okay. He has also been drying meats, beef jerky.
And making fire starters with Q-tips.
I didn't know you could do that.
Hank discovered that. Yeah.
Oh, Hank invented that. He's got a patent pending.
Yeah.
I think it's just cute.
It's just Q. Like that.
No,
It's
it's
one. Oh, the letter Q? Q tips. Cotton swabs. How does Hank feel about leaving his mountain solitude behind, even temporarily? Is he excited, anxious, or conflicted about it?
We just ignored all those weird details.
Remember.
It'll remember it,
Okay.
and I'll show you how in a second.
He's excited. Never
He
gets out.
is excited to go on a trip. He rarely gets out. Yeah. How does Hank's appearance reflect his life as a hermit and a satyr? Does he have a rugged, wild look, or does he maintain some personal grooming routines?
I go for rugged and wild.
Hank is rugged and wild. He is, after all, half goat.
And does not own a razor.
How does Hank speak? Does he have a certain accent, tone, or way of phrasing things that reflects his hermit life or his satyr nature?
Mumbly.
Take complete sentences.
Hank speaks in mumbly, incomplete sentences. Does he have an accent or anything?
Irish.
He has a thick Irish Boston accent. He sounds like Bill Burr.
He likes to chew on things.
Yeah, he's a goat.
Thus the
Or other goats.
All right, we're actually getting there, friends.
yeah, it's getting on.
Does Hank have any specific habits, quirks besides chewing on things that reflect his life in isolation or his satyr instincts?
He picks his hair, plucks his hair.
Hank plucks his, like an anxiety thing.
And he has a tick. He has a tick.
What's his tick?
Hoof stomp.
Oh, like a tick.
That's a pet tick.
A pet tick.
Don't give it a name.
Yeah, don't give it a name or it'll just ask us about the tick for 45 questions.
Yeah, he's gonna say, is the area.
Angel likes to tip a phrase.
Does Hank have any memories or mementos from his past life before the tsunami that he keeps with him, or has he left all of that behind?
Just the frog.
His grandfather's compass.
Nice. Hank has kept his grandfather's compass.
It's broken and only points southeast.
It's probably why he's going to the Bahamas. How does Hank feel about the broken compass? Does he find meaning in its flaw, or is it simply a relic of the past?
He sees its his direction as a spiritual sign
Okay.
and always goes southeast.
He sees its direction as a spiritual sign
Yeah, that's right.
and always goes southeast.
You can save this, right, like if you were doing it in elementary school and you could only do a couple questions a day, then they could come back the next day and do
Yeah,
more questions.
yeah. And I can actually show you, maybe if we have time later, I'll show you the ones I made last night, and they still have. I think there are limits about how long it will save it for, and there are ways that you can sort of download it and keep it, but I'm not a super pro about doing that, but there are ways that we could figure out how to save it for longer. The more that you do this, the more it will eventually overwrite its own memory. Does Hank have any beliefs or philosophies about the world, nature, or life that guide him, especially in his solitary existence and now on his own pilgrimage? I'll tell you what not to say, because I found this out the hard way. Don't say that Hank is a Maoist. I said that I made a character who was a Maoist, and I don't know why. I think ChatGPT just doesn't like Maoism, but he made him into like a really moody, dark, chain-smoking character. Because whether that was the Maoist question or not, that was the only thing I could figure that I did to make him do that. Does ChatGPT have an ideological bent to it? It certainly does. Is it anti-Maoism? We don't know. But anyways, does Hank have any beliefs or philosophies about the world, nature, or life that guide him, especially in his solitary existence and now on his pilgrimage? Yeah.
Goats are the supreme species.
Hank believes that goats are the greatest species of all time.
He's also a Buddhist and believes he's only halfway stuck in samsara because of his humanity.
He is only halfway stuck in is samsara capitalized? I don't think it. Because of his hybrid human goat ancestry. Are satyrs made by, well,
You're opening a can of worms.
maybe ancestry isn't the one. Let's just call it nature. How does Hank feel about his human side? Does he embrace it, resent it, or see it as something he must overcome to fully realize his goat potential?
He's ashamed of it.
Hank is somewhat ashamed to be part human.
It gradually reduces through good works.
Oh, so the better he is, the less human he has to be.
Fail.
His humanity gradually reduces the more good works Hank does. Okay, we have the final three questions that we're going to do today. What kind of good works does Hank believe will reduce his humanity and help him embrace his goat nature more fully? Yeah.
Reducing his carbon emission.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of that vote.
Oh, that airboat.
Repopulating the planet with plants. Spreading seeds.
How about being a beekeeper?
Composting.
Composting. He's an environmentalist.
He chews on recycled goods.
Chewing on recycled goods.
Tending the pond?
Tending the.
I didn't say remember Tommy.
Yeah, that's what I-
No, it'll just only ask us about Tommy. Does Hank have any specific rituals or practices he performs as part of these good works, such as daily habits, ceremonies tied to his environmental efforts.
He takes a lot of ketamine.
He takes a lot of ketamine, which is fine for veterinary purposes,
It keeps a detailed journal.
and keeps a detailed journal.
Via YouTube.
He's a vlogging hermit.
He can't write with his hooves.
And he does, 1 million goals followers.
All right, last question. How does Hank's use of ketamine and his YouTube journaling fit into his larger journey? Does he see them as part of his spiritual process, or are they more of a coping mechanism for his internal struggles?
Blogs, maybe hourly from,
He believes he's a messiah for the goat community.
He is the Messiah for the goat community, and his YouTube
It's apostolic.
is what?
Apostolic.
I don't even know how to spell that. Apostol, like that?
There you go.
Hey. You can do a fair amount of typos and it'll figure it out. I'm somebody who says like please and thank you to ChatGPT. Yeah. 'Cause what, you know what I mean? Like what if?
Just in case.
Actually, Amelia and I used to play in a band called Lullabies for AI. This doesn't appear in our bios, but it was called Lullabies for AI, and Amelia wrote all the songs. Shouts to Amelia. But she would write these songs. The idea behind the band was that when the AI superintelligence becomes self-aware, we need to raise it like a small child so that it knows not to, how to act in the world and not to destroy us. So that was sort of the conceit of the band. Maybe we'll come back some other time and do a Lullabies for AI show. That could be fun. Okay, so that's our last question. So do we want to activate Hank now or do anything else with his character? What I'd like to actually do is I'd like to see what he thinks Hank looks like. Please draw Hank and Tommy.
Solid.
That's not bad. He's got the compass. He's got our friend the frog, who's a fat frog.
Did we say?
I like the pipe. That's nice addition.
We didn't say he smoked, but he does ketamine, so he might be kind of like a club guy. Yeah, that's not too bad.
ask for a full body, to see if he looks like the same
Yeah.
Please draw a full body portrait of Hank in the Bahamas.
If you ask for it in a portrait, aspect
Oh,
ratio,
portrait?
you're more likely to get. If you said the AR to something help me. Yeah, the aspect ratio.
What wrong?
If you just say 9 by 16, it'll probably. So if you say a full body 9:16 AR image,
9:16 image.
say AR just for aspect ratio. And then it might not work.
Yeah, because we didn't say please.
Yeah, baby.
Not bad. There he is. He's still got his compass. He's got.
Ready to roll.
She has the key.
He looks more goat than human, but I guess he's been doing a lot of good deeds. So
Well, he's in the Bahamas.
yeah, he's in the Bahamas.
Thank you last time.
Yeah, I didn't ask for Tommy on this one, so.
Ask for any different versions of that, just to kind of see what.
Sure.
I really like doing some of the things that asking for charts.
What's that?
I like asking for charts from ChatGPT.
What kind of charts?
Like hypothetical situations and how they'll respond.
Oh, I see what you
And it
mean.
gives me like a grid table with lots of things.
So what would be an example of a prompt that you might put for our friend Hank here?
Give me a chart with 20 hypothetical situations and how Hank will externally feel about them versus internally.
And how Hank would, let's just ask it for how he would respond so that we can see. It's thinking about it.
Figuring out what hypothetical situations.
Cool. A tourist asks Hank for directions to a nearby island. Mumbles directions, points southeast, choose direction. That's better than I probably would come up with. I mean, we know this, right? Because we kind of developed Hank together, so we know this is accurate.
Read number three. Read number three.
Hank finds a conch shell on the beach, chews it for a while, decides to keep it as a keepsake. A local offers Hank fresh fruit in exchange for some of his jerky. Mumbles takes the fruit but hesitates to part with his jerky. So you could see how this would be really useful in like a D&D campaign or something. If you had multiple agents that you created this way, you could sort of start to figure out how they would respond. So if your players in an interactive campaign like D&D or any kind of tabletop game, if your players bring you a situation, you already have some kind of knowledge of how this character would respond. And you don't have to agree with this, right? I think it's accurate to the character that we created. Of course, we created kind of like a crazy hybrid character. If you wanted to try this on like a piece of historical fiction, it might be a little bit more glaring, right? Some of the things that that don't line up might be a little bit more glaring because this is a fictional creature that we collaboratively created. Telepathically tells the dolphin it's his spiritual brother. That seems true. Because it's a character that we just created just now, we're willing to believe almost anything about it. But there is still a degree of plausibility in this character, and the way in which it's responding seems to indicate that we know that all it's doing is like fundamentally is pattern matching, but it seems like in a Turing test way, like it understood exactly what we asked of it.
Can I make a request?
Yeah.
A 10-frame storyboard of situation 5.
Yes. Please generate a 10-frame storyboard of situation number 5.
Number 6 is great.
Now I know what I'm gonna do when I'm retired. Just sit around and do this all day.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Have you played around with AI Dungeon or some of these customized, they're like sites for this type of thing?
I haven't played around with AI Dungeon. There's one called like Novel AI that I played around with a little bit, and there's another one that is similar that who wants to play Hank and who would like to play the dolphin?
All right, we're gonna do that, but they're gonna have mics.
They're gonna have mics so they can be recorded. Volunteer to play Hank.
How does no one wants to do this?
And the dolphin. external Bahamas beach
Your
day.
hand.
Time for swim, water's nice, compass says southwest, always.
He takes a few more steps into the ocean, the water rising to his waist. Suddenly something catches his eye in the distance, a sleek gray figure cutting through the waves.
What's that?
A dolphin gracefully approaches, bobbing in and out of the water. Hank's eyes widen, the dolphin circles him, playfully, curious.
The dolphin, spirit of the water.
The dolphin pauses in front of him just a few feet away. Its large, intelligent eyes lock onto Hank's.
You know me.
There's a moment of stillness. Hank stares intently at the dolphin. In his mind, he hears a faint, echoing voice, a telepathic connection. The dolphin speaks without words.
Lonely, but not lost. Goat spirit, strong.
The dolphin blinks back as if understanding. It lets out a high-pitched chirp, then dips beneath the water.
Spirit, brother, like always southeast.
He reaches up, plucks a strand of his wild hair, and flicks it into the ocean as if sealing the connection. The dolphin resurfaces once more, a distant figure now, then dives under and vanishes. Hank stands there, chewing the last of his beef jerky, staring thoughtfully into the waves.
Maybe not eat, Tommy?
Hank sighs deeply, turns and walks back toward the shore. Fade out. So, we could play with this in a number of different ways. We do have quite a bit of time still left to go. Why don't we ask it to do like a hero's journey about Hank? So let's ask it for an outline of a hero's journey story about Hank. Yeah?
Yeah, there's something called 7 sentences in screenwriting. Sometimes I'll say I want the story in 7-sentence structure, and then I'll paste the 7 sentences into the prompt, so I get it just like that.
Okay. So write a 7-sentence like that. Hank, a solitary satyr living in the mountains, receives a spiritual calling to fill the void in his heart by journeying to the Bahamas. Reluctantly leaving his peaceful isolation, he builds an airboat and embarks on his pilgrimage, guided only by a broken compass pointing southeast. Along the way, Hank faces storms and self-doubt, all while battling his urge to eat the telepathic frog companion, Tommy. This is kind of like that episode of The Mandalorian where the little baby is eating basically frogs. Along the way, Hank faces storms and self-doubt, all while battling his urge to eat his telepathic frog companion Tommy. As he nears the Bahamas, Hank encounters a mystical dolphin who telepathically tells him that true peace lies in accepting both his goat and human sides. Inspired by this revelation, Hank presses on, reaching the sunlit shores of the Bahamas with renewed purpose. There he meditates and begins to tending to the land, planting seeds and working towards reducing his carbon footprint, believing this will free him of his human half. In the end, Hank learns that balance rather than rejection is the path to inner peace, continuing his journey as both satyr and man. So we could actually probably work with that. Is there anything about this that you would want to change that seems maybe too formulaic or too on the nose? Yeah, what would you change?
I like life in that space.
Okay. rewrite the previous prompt, but this time inject life and death stakes. Okay, so now it's a haunting vision foretelling his death unless he embarks upon a perilous journey to the Bahamas to fill a void in his heart. Driven by fear and a desperate need for redemption, he builds, so this is like the gritty, kind of grimdark version of Hank's Odyssey. A storm rages and the sea threatens to swallow him whole. Hank wrestles with the gnawing hunger to eat his only companion, Tommy, a telepathic frog who pleads for his life. So even Tommy has life or death stakes now. Nearing the Bahamas, Hank is ambushed by a deadly sea serpent, but a mystical dolphin intervenes, telepathically revealing that Hank's survival depends on accepting both his goat and human natures. Shaken but alive, Hank reaches the Bahamas where the islands test him with venomous creatures and deadly traps, forcing him to confront his mortality at every turn. With each obstacle overcome, Hank plants seeds and restores life to the island, believing that this will save him from his cursed fate. In the end, Hank learns that balance, not rejection, is the key to surviving the journey, but the stakes remain high. If he falters, his life hangs in the balance. Yeah. We haven't actually tried this yet, but let's try talking to Hank. You want to talk to old Hank, eh? Choose thoughtfully. Been a long journey, but I reckon here I am. What is it you want? I got a trip to finish, gestures southeast. What do we want to ask him?
Tell him during the storm surge to climb a palm tree at the line and tell Tommy to come up so he can reach his true goat self.
Okay. During a storm surge, you should
Cling to a palm tree.
cling to a palm tree. And tell Tommy what?
Tell Tommy to hop up so to save him, and that way he can reach his true goat self.
This will enable goat self. Aye, the storm's coming, a wild one. Cling to the palm tree, you say. I don't know why he's a pirate. Oh, we made him Irish, right? Oh, he's got like a Boston accent, right, too?
Yeah, Irish Boston accent.
Yeah. Can anyone do a really good Boston accent?
Irish, thick accent.
Yeah.
Unless he has a cod pot.
You're hop up, lad. You're part of this too. Mumbles to self. If this tree holds, maybe it'll be the way. True goat self climbing through the winds, holding on, letting the storm take what it will. Grip the tree tightly, eyes fixed ahead. So, for some reason, he loves saying maybe. Is it just because he's mumbling? I've seen him say this like 3 times so far. Yeah.
Ask why did he choose Tommy as his companion? Why did he choose frog?
He's got an inner conflict, maybe.
Yeah, so he's got a couple inner conflicts, right? Like, he wants to eat the frog, he doesn't want to eat the frog, he wants to be a goat, but he's part human. He's a conflicted guy.
He needs counseling.
He does, and he's not going to get it out in the mountains.
Oh yeah, if the frog goes up there, we'll feed him for food.
He might. Maybe.
I think somehow the dolphin is selfish.
Yeah, I think the dolphin represents his sort of like better nature that comes along and intervenes. He might not even be a real dolphin. It might be the case that none of these telepathic animals are real for Tommy, or for Hank. They could be hallucinations of a kind. Of the ketamine, sure.
Who is the narrator in this story?
It's us, right? Yeah, it's kind of an unnamed third person omniscient narrator.
See, what would happen if there was like a whole tadpoles that turned into like the frogs and how he would deal with that? If you wanted to eat Tommy, is this something like any frog?
Let's ask him. Would you be interested in eating any frog, or is Tommy especially appetizing to you? Any old frog, not the same. Tommy, been eyeing him since the start, but there's something about, man, that's kind of disturbing. It's like he's part of the journey, part of his story. Tommy's got something special, but I ain't done it yet. Feels like maybe I need him more than I thought. Wow. I'm gonna stop talking to Hank before it gets any weirder. Let's see if it remembers this character that I made yesterday. Talk to Omar.
I was gonna say, how long does it remember these characters?
Oh yeah, so Omar, one thing about Omar is that he speaks in rhyme. And he is a owl who speaks in rhyme, and he's kind of stupid, but he thinks he's very wise because he's so old. So you can mix and match these. Omar could talk to Hank, or what we could do is we could say, Omar, can you please tell us a story about Hank? Ooh. A tale of Hank, you ask of me, a sadder wild as wild can be. Upon a mountain high and steep, Hank lived alone where goats might leap. He wandered far, both near and wide, with Tommy Frog right by his side. A broken compass, heart forlorn, till one day by a storm he's torn. He clung to trees and mighty gales, his jerky gone, no strength prevails. Yet still he fought the wind's cold bite, for southeast drew him clear as light. Though tempted by poor Tommy's meat, his heart and mind did not repeat. Instead, he found his goatish soul, and onward climbed, he reached his goal. Hoo, what do you think? A tale of Hank with rhyme and sing. So, I know we have a half hour.
Can you share this with us somehow?
Yeah, I can absolutely, I think we'll figure out a way to share this.
There's that share button up at the top. So when you're done, that'll generate a link and you can email that to me and then I'll email it
Okay,
out.
great.
Yeah.
We could continue playing. We have a half hour left of this, but I think you get the idea.